Hello and welcome back, statistics students. We are still inside of chapter 6 through 8, okay? And now we are going to move on to number 7 in the monopoly examples. If you're just joining us and you're really lost on how we got to here, I've done 6 videos before this. The very first one shows you the data, shows you how to plug it in, and then we're kind of working through a bunch of different things. We're finally on to find the line of best fit, which technically I've kind of already done in the last 2 videos. I just haven't talked about it. And it does say find the line and identify any variables being used. So over here on my calculator, I do have mine up. I still have the data inside of it. I want to run that line, my linear regression again. So I go over to calc, and then I'm going down to 8 is my favorite one. I want to make sure that L1 is where I put my spaces, and L2 is where I put my cost. I've shown a couple times how to store the regression line. I'll do that again. It's vars, right? Go over to y variables, function, hit y1, got it in there. Then the next thing I want to do is calculate it. Here we got a bunch of stuff. Before I talked about r squared, that's actually what I did on 6, which you can still see on my screen. And r is actually what I did on 5. Okay, example number 5, so you can go back and check that video out. But we're finally on to our linear regression line. It's up here. It's y equals a plus bx, which means a is the constant, or also known as the y-intercept, and then our b is the coefficient of my x variable, which is also known as like the slope. So here when I'm plugging things in though, I want to write it as, or in context, because instead of identifying variables being used, I would rather just write it in context in general. So what I do is this y is a prediction. And y, what are we predicting? Well, we're predicting the cost. So I say cost, and to indicate it's a prediction, it's not actually a real value, I put this hat above it, equals, my a value over here is 67.28, okay, plus, then it's 6.78, that's the slope. I multiply that times the x variable. Well, the x, what am I using to predict? Well, that is spaces. Typically, when we write these in here, we don't want them to be huge, long variables. This is not a hat either. I don't know why I just put that hat in there. Okay. So I take, if I had a number of spaces, I could plug it in here, and I could get a prediction on the cost. Okay. So I could do any spaces that I'd want. And there is the line of best fit, right? We don't usually call it the line of best fit. We call this the least squared regression line. Okay, line of best fit is something that you learn in a basic algebra course. And there we have number 7. Coming up next, you can see the questions, okay? Feel free to skip to whichever one you need help on, but I'm going to move on to number 8 next.